Thank you for tuning into another edition of Outside the Shop with me, your host, Daryl D. Lane, as always, where I get to talk about everything that I normally don't get to talk about my regular sports podcast, Barber Shop Sports Talk. We're going to have a great podcast for all you guys today. First of all, what I do want to say is this. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in via Twitter /Periscope, Facebook Live, and YouTube live stream. Also, check out the podcast that I did with my guy, Kenny Sims, scouting expert for 247 Sports. This past weekend, I just released that podcast today. We talked about the NFL draft. We went through quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, offensive tackles, interior offensive linemen, tight ends. So if you have a team in the NFL draft and you want to hear about those position groups on the offensive side of the ball, I have it all tagged. All the numbers are put in. So you guys can just, if you want to listen to it on Spotify, you can just type on the number and then it will send you to that part of the show because it's a longer episode. It's about an hour, 30 minutes. I know people have a lot of different stuff that they need to do. So if you just want to listen to quarterbacks, if you're tuning to quarterback or you just want to hear about it, just type in that number, running backs, wide receivers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I also check in the description below on a little 5-minute YouTube clip of me and Kenny, and Kenny's does his quarterback rankings. I'll tell you this, just like it is in the description, it's a little teaser. Trevor Lawrence is 1, Zack Wilson is 4. So who's 2, 3, and 5? We're going to have to check on the video to figure that out. So here's what we have today. First of all, San Francisco 49ers, it seems like they don't know what they're doing. They're kind of in this internal power struggle. You have Kyle Shanahan wanting Mac Jones. It looks like John Lynch and other members, high-ranking members in the San Francisco 49ers organization, they want Trey Lance. It seems Justin Fields eliminated himself from this conversation completely. Here's what I have to say about this. I think it's all crazy. You would expect, you always think about this, right? There's always that family that you think is kind of buttoned up, and then you look on the outside and you're like, oh, well, the dad was cheating on the wife. There was abuse going on, and maybe they're not so clean-cut as we thought they were. That's what this kind of looks like. You would think the San Francisco 49ers, these guys, they would know, and they're one of the better organizations of football, that they would know who they're taking, that there wouldn't be a power struggle going on about 4 or 5 days before the draft. You wouldn't expect that. That's a little crazy, and that's, quite frankly, a little concerning. And then Kyle Shanahan, I think they had their presser today, and I think what happened is I think Kyle Shanahan finally leaked that he wanted Mac Jones because now other members in the San Francisco 49ers organization, they're linking that they want Trey Lance. So I think there's a lot of politics at play. I think at the end of the day, you got to give Kyle Shanahan, if he's your coach of the future, and I think he is. I have tremendous respect for Kyle Shanahan as an offensive mind. You got to give him the keys to the car because he's the one that's going to have to be coaching the quarterback. Like, at the end of the day, the GM's not going to be coaching the quarterback. These personnel executives, I get that their job is to do personnel decisions, but they're not coaching the quarterback. So if Kyle Shanahan says Mac Jones is Matt Ryan and that's how we're rolling, then you're going to have to roll that way. And that's why at the end of the day, I think that's going to win out. But if this doesn't work out, it's Kyle Shanahan's ass. That's what it is. 49ers press conference, something he did say, he was asked about Jimmy Garoppolo if he'd be on the roster by next Sunday, and he says, I can't guarantee that anybody in the world will be alive Sunday. AKA, Jimmy G, you're gone. We love you, brother. Thank you for taking us to the AFC Championship game. The NFC Championship game, but you are not going to be around much longer. I think that is clear. I also think if they're getting rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, that all but assures that guys like Justin Fields and Trey Lance won't be drafted because they're guys that might get a little bit more seasoning, sit on the bench and let Jimmy G start the rest of the first year, then trade him the next year, kind of Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith. Like, if they're going with Mac Jones, he's NFL ready right now. He's ready to go right away. He's on the level right away. So I think that's also a little hint that Mac Jones could be the guy. I want to talk about this. The Mac Jones disrespect that I've been hearing on Twitter, it has to stop. It has to stop. It has to stop. First of all, I just want to talk to you. If anybody's ever, when you're in a relationship, and this is how I'll compare this, there's sometimes people who look for looks, and there's some people who look for personality. Now, the looks, really sexy, good looking, right? They look perfect on the outside. They're the Justin Fields or Trey Lance, super fast, big, strong, athletic, powerful arm. Can make all the throws. You can run read option with them. You can do all this crazy stuff. They're like the cool new toy that's in town. And then there's, the personality, the Mac Jones, kind of not as sexually appealing. You're like, oh, but it gets the job done. And that's the person you marry 20 years later, right? No cheating, no divorce, nothing crazy. Mac Jones, was great at Alabama. He made throws. He was a playmaker. He wasn't a playmaker necessarily with his legs, but he was a playmaker with his feet in the pocket, extending plays, moving, shuffling, also making big-time throws down the field, making pinpoint passes. Like, there's more to just running than being a playmaker. I think that's what we're starting to do in the NFL. If you can't run, you're not a playmaker. Tom Brady was a playmaker. Peyton Manning was a playmaker. They weren't game managers. They drove the freaking bus. Same with Drew Brees. And none of those dudes could run. Phillip Rivers. Like, so I think we're getting a little bit too confused with this whole narrative with the running quarterback. Mac Jones was great at Alabama. He started for 1 year, but you want to know who else started only for 1 year? Trey Lance. And everybody loves Trey Lance. They're like, Trey Lance is the guy. Trey Lance is the guy. They're like, oh, Mac Jones had all this talent in Alabama. Well, you want to know what? Actually, he only played with Devontae Smith for the whole year. Jalen Waddle was hurt, and people forget Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy. They were drafted to the NFL. And John Mechie, I don't think he's that great. He has suspect hands, can't really separate. And struggles to get off press. So I'm not that thrilled of John Mechie as a prospect for the next upcoming draft. So I just want to say that right there. So, Mac Jones was not throwing the talent that maybe we thought he was. And also, you want to know what else? Trevor Lawrence, throwing to talented guys. A lot of screen passes. Justin Fields, throwing to a lot of good guys. Trey Lance, for Division 1A, where he was playing, throwing to a lot of good guys. Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, every time they all stepped on the field, had the best team by far. Best team by far. And for us to just to downgrade Mac Jones because it's wrong. It's wrong. The only guys in this quarterback class who did not have the best team every time they stepped on the field were Kellen Mond at a Texas A&M and Zack Wilson at a BYU. So unless you're mentioning those two in terms of who they played with, don't mention them. Don't mention it because you have to be consistent. You just have to be consistent, and that's what's pissing me off. Mac Jones, he's really good. People are trying to say he's a bust. Maybe he's Matt Ryan. Maybe that's what Kyle Shanahan sees in him. Like, let's not just assume that this dude's going to be freaking A.J. McCarron. Like, there's levels to this, folks. There's levels to this. New England Patriots are reportedly looking at Justin Fields, trading up to get him. I think this would be interesting. First of all, Justin Fields, who will people compare him to? Cam Newton. You can have Justin Fields sit for 1 year under Cam Newton. They're both big, physical, strong, strapping guys in the pocket. Both have big arms. And then he can learn from Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. Then he can come in a year two. Bada bing, bada boom. I think that would be really good. I also think that Bill Belichick, I think he's historically had a close relationship with guys like Urban Meyer, Ryan Day in the Ohio State program. I think that'd be interesting as well. So, and honestly, I think Justin Fields, he's a gamer. I think he's a guy with a lot of talent, a lot of physical potential. He's my QB3 in this draft. So if Bill Belichick drafts him, that's the best stamp of approval we can do. Also, Josh McDaniels, I just want to say this. When Josh McDaniels was at Denver, who did he draft in the first round? Tim Tebow. Not comparing Tim Tebow necessarily to Justin Fields, but both big, strong guys who can run the read option and run with power. So I think they can do some stuff. And they were using a lot of QB powers with Cam Newton as well. That's what they were doing a lot. So I think also the way they're doing the passing game right now, making a lot of short passes, a lot of running. Good offensive line there in New England. I think it's perfect for Justin Fields. Now we're getting to this. The Baltimore Ravens, they're looking at targeting a wide receiver. Some wide receivers they can get. There's Terrence Marshall Jr. out of LSU. There's guys like maybe a Waddle falls down there. Maybe they use their 2 first-round picks to trade up to get a Waddle, like around the 15 range in the draft. There's also Kadarius Toney out of the wide receiver out of Florida. There's Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota. So there's a couple options. But I definitely think they need to expand their running game, actually their wide receiving game, to give Lamar Jackson more options to throw. Because obviously Hollywood Brown, he's not a great route runner. He's kind of a one-trick pony. He can only throw it deep or use a sweep, or really there's nothing you can do with Hollywood Brown. So I think that's what Baltimore's looking at. And also in terms of this, speaking of Baltimore Ravens moves, Orlando Brown, Pro Bowl left tackle, is traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. Why would the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm mad because I'm a Bills fan, why would you help out the team in the AFC, the gold standard in the AFC, and the Baltimore Ravens, you're trying to ascend to that. Why do you help out the Chiefs? I don't understand that. I don't understand that. That's almost as bad as them trading to the Steelers. You would have been better off trading him to the Bengals. You're not going to be worried about the Bengals in the next 4 to 5 years. You know what you're going to be worried about? Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Why are you helping those guys? The weakness of the Chiefs was their offensive line, their tackle play. That's how Tampa Bay was able to beat them in the Super Bowl. And you're going to make it harder to expose that? To me, makes no sense. You keep Orlando Brown. You don't make Kansas City stronger. You don't do that. Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward. The Browns exercise their 5th-year options. I think this has been great for the city of Cleveland. Baker Mayfield has changed the culture of the Cleveland Browns. I think the Cleveland Browns used to be considered losers. They were never considered to be the franchise. I remember I was looking back at old draft YouTube videos on Bleacher Report, and you know what they said during that draft? You should draft Saquon Barkley number 1, Sam Darnold number 4. And you know what they did? They ended up doing Baker Mayfield 1, Denzel Ward 4. I think that worked out pretty well for the Cleveland Browns. You have a guy who's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL in Baker Mayfield, who's gotten you to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. And you got a guy in Denzel Ward who's one of the top 10 corners in the NFL, Pro Bowl caliber corner. Can play on an island. So I think what Cleveland has done with that draft, I think the fruits of that labor are paying off, especially Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, leader. He's changed the culture of the Cleveland Browns, and it's really special to see. The dude is a winner. I think we use that word too often sometimes, but the dude's a winner. Just even look at his rookie year, what he did, making the Cleveland Browns just more competitive when he came in for Tyrod, what he did. Remember that Thursday night football game against the Jets when he came in against Sam Darnold, how he willed Cleveland to victory. Baker Mayfield has some special stuff to him. So on the NBA front, so the Lakers, the Lakers, they lost the Mavericks, and the Nets, they blew out the Suns yesterday. And I'm still on this, and I'm going to double down right now. The Lakers will win the NBA championship. Luka Doncic, even though the Mavericks won, Luka Doncic, he was 6 of 15 on 18 points. So he shot 15 times and scored 18 points. I think that's good. The Lakers right now are the second best defense in the NBA. Andre Drummond, he's a guy that can get you 10 rebounds a game. Could get a couple block shots. I think once you get LeBron back, you get AD and LeBron in a rhythm, and they can both be the top 5 players that we know they can be. Lakers can beat anybody, and their defense is still stellar. And Anthony Davis is one of the best defensive players in all of basketball. When he's right, he can cover, he can switch on the perimeter, he can be a monster in the paint. So I personally think the Lakers right now are the team to beat. And here's my thing: I think they have a repeat in them. And when LeBron is in the playoffs, he's just different. Who do you trust in the playoffs? Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, or LeBron? I'm going with LeBron. That's just what I'm doing. Also, Steph Curry, he breaks James Harden's record for most three-pointers in a month. I just want to say something about how special Steph Curry is. He shoots 40% from 3 for most of his years in the NBA. But what's so impressive about it is the fact that he's shooting double-digit threes, double-digit attempts, 10 to 12 a game, and he's knocking down 40% of them. Do you know how efficient that is? That's like you shooting the ball 30 times a game, and you're shooting 50%. Like, that's crazy to me. That's mind-blowing. That's just mind-blowing. Usually, the more efficient guys are the spot-up shooters like the Kyle Korvers, the Ray Allens, that get open shots, or those guys that are coming off picks. Not guys like Steph Curry who are pulling up from half court and shooting threes right in your face like splash, splash, splash. So, Steph Curry, absolutely special what he does. The most efficient, high-volume three-point shooter of all time. It's extraordinary and special to watch. The New York Knicks, there was a report I saw on Bleacher Report that they're trying to impress some NBA stars. And will their front office chase the big name? So obviously we've seen Zion Williams say he would love to play, and he loves playing in Madison Square Garden. We've also seen guys like LeBron James saying the NBA is better when the New York Knicks are good. So I'm just going to say this. Some guys, Zion Williamson, you know who his former teammate was at Duke, RJ Barrett, 3rd overall pick for the New York Knicks in the same class. They played together. That could be interesting. Also, you also want to know who went to Kentucky, right? One of their executives, Worldwide Wes, have a big, strong Kentucky connection. Guys like Devin Booker. I know Devin Booker is winning right now in Phoenix, but Chris Paul can't play forever. When Chris Paul's out, then I think Phoenix is going right down the tubes. You also have Karl Anthony Towns. It's kind of speculated how much longer he's going to be in Minnesota. Make a trade for Karl Anthony Towns. Have Karl Anthony Towns sign in free agency. So those are just 3 guys to look for potentially that could be on the New York Knicks radar. And lastly, what I do want to say is this. It looks like Howard Beck of Yahoo, of SI.com, Sports Illustrated, reported that the play-in tournament is likely to stay around, especially if it goes well. I think, personally, I agree with him. I think the play-in tournament will stay in basketball. Here's my thing I'm going to say for the play-in tournament, why I think it's going to stay. More money, more TV games, more playoff games that you can sell this, like, right, in terms of fan attendance and for the TV networks. So I think all the way around is better. I think it creates more intrigue. It stops tanking. To me, the only things that are bad for it hurts the teams that are 7th and 8th seeds, and I don't think the league cares. I don't think the league cares because I think in the league's mind, the LeBrons, the Kevin Durant's, those guys will always be in the top 4 seeds, right? Give or take. So those guys will never be in danger. This isn't hurting them. It's hurting the guys like on the outside looking in. It's hurting the guys like the Chicago Bulls of the world, right? And I don't think the NBA personally cares that much about it. And it promotes more intrigue. So that's all we have for this edition of Outside the Shop, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day and God bless.